Happy New Year, Blenders, and welcome to episode number 197 of ReelBlend, a podcast that definitely has a larger audience than the Golden Globes. It is our first show of 2022, and I swear to you guys, this is the year we are going to figure podcasting out. This is the year. I feel really good about this one. So stick with us, subscribe, and follow along. On this week's show, one of the most exciting times of the year, we're going to be doing our top 10 lists of 2021. We are also going to be naming ReelBlend's top 5 movies of the year, which means all of our collective lists smashed together. And because Hollywood is back at it with the 355, we have director Simon Kinberg joining us as our guest. And by us, I mean, for the very first time of 2022, Kevin McCarthy of Fox 5 in Washington, D.C. Hello, Kevin. How are you, sir?
Sean, Jake, Gabe, missed you guys, obviously. I mean, we talked on a text thread, but I mean, I missed y'all just doing the show together, and I'm looking forward to people hearing the Kinberg interview. Just a little tease for that. There's a really cool story in there about Mr. and Mrs. Smith that I think people are really going to dig.
Oh, that's a great one.
So very excited about that. But great to see you guys as always, and love you guys. You guys know that. So
in the third chair, Jake Hamilton of Fox 32 in Chicago, where I assume that it's pretty cold today. How's it doing today, Jake?
It is a balmy. I think it's always important to know what it feels like. I think it feels like 4.
Yes.
Literally 4. which is why I'm all like cozy and bundled up, because as soon as I get home, I rip off my suit and just get all my cozy clothes on.
I love single digits in Chicago. And off camera, but still equally important to the show, Gabe Kovac is joining us in the producer's chair. Gabriel, how are you, sir?
Welcome back, boys. Happy New Year.
Does the producer's chair like feel different? Is there more cushion?
Yes.
Actually, there's no. I've been squatting the whole time. There's no chair. We can't afford the chair for the producer.
Power squats.
I've got massive thighs.
You can buy one on the ReelBlend website.
I'm convinced that Gabe owns 2 T-shirts. The Jurassic Park one that he's wearing now.
Yeah,
that's a popular one.
I can't think of the other one that he wears all the time, but that's the one I see all the time on Gabe.
You know which one he should be wearing is a ReelBlend T-shirt. He should be promoting the show constantly.
I own
help
at
us
least
grow
2
the
of
audience. To that end, if you're watching us on YouTube and want to see Gabe's shirt, thank you very much for joining us. Head down, give us a like and a subscribe. It is our goal in 2022 to grow out the audience of this show. Look at Jake is showing off like a good host, showing off merchandise. For our audio listeners, if you want to join us in video form, head over to youtube.com/ReelBlend Podcast. We are available everywhere you get your podcast needs met in 2022, including Spotify. So now we're on Spotify, guys. So if you listen to podcasts on Spotify, which is something that I started doing over the holiday break, by the way, I started checking to see a couple of different podcasts that were recommended to me and enjoyed finding some new ones, which I'm not going to mention on the show because I'm not going to promote them. They're not doing anything to help us out.
How do you have
Why
time?
would I? I did a lot of driving over the holiday. And my family, I'll let you know, my family, when they're in the car with me, fall asleep instantly. Because I'm an exciting person, apparently. And they're instantly falling asleep. But listen, here's the thing about Spotify that is equally important. It lets you leave ratings for your favorite podcasts. So please help us spread the love by dropping us a 5-star rating is what I would like to see if you want. But be honest, 4, 3, whatever you guys feel like.
Be honest, but be kind. That's what I always say.
Be kind. I think that's fair.
Be kind, rewind.
Because those ratings help us grow the show and hopefully get us recommended. Resolution for 2022. I want to get recommended on the Apple podcast page.
I found out that last year we ranked in the top 30 in Norway on Apple Podcasts.
Oh, that's wild. Really?
Yeah, it was something like that. It was a random stat that got thrown my way.
That's where our next meetup is going to be?
I think it's got to be.
Sold.
I'm in.
Research some bars in that area.
Yeah, just no Shake Shack for you for a year, so you can save up that money to send us all.
Oh, that's a month's
Norway.
worth of Shake Shack, maybe.
Yeah.
That's one meal. That's one trip.
I don't know if I can give up Shake Shack. I made burgers for the family yesterday, and Brendan told me that my burgers are better than Shake Shack.
They probably are.
Oh.
I don't know if that's a compliment to me or a dig at Shake Shack. I'm not quite sure.
Well, Shake Shack is good. It's not the end-all, be-all that you say it is.
Okay.
But maybe your burgers were better than Shake Shack. I mean, that's not surprising to me.
And he's the honest one with me, too. It's the other one I can't trust all that much. This is a hot topic of conversation that we're throwing it out to you guys as part of the weekly poll. Will Spider-Man No Way Home actually get a Best Picture nomination? And we bring this up because there's been a lot of buzz lately, and I'm starting to see when I go to the websites for the trades, Deadline, Variety, there's ads campaigning for Spider-Man No Way Home to get a Best Picture nomination.
As there should be, by the way.
I think so too. There's no reason why Sony shouldn't throw their hat into the ring. I'm not even saying that it's a movie that I think should win necessarily.
No, just be nominated.
I'm a little biased. I kind of think that it, could and should win. I like it more than the movies that are being trumpeted as frontrunners for the moment right now. But we asked you guys, and Jake, I'll throw it to you. We only gave 2 choices, yep or nope. Do you think Spider-Man No Way Home is going to get a Best Picture nomination?
I am going to say nope.
You say nope.
I say
and what do you
nope.
think the people said?
I think the people said nope.
Yes, they did say nope, but it's closer than you think. 46% of the people said yes.
Really?
54
How
said
much of
no.
that is wishful thinking?
I mean,
It's all wishful thinking.
I remember, it was just a couple of years ago that Disney put out those really classy black and white Avengers Endgame, consider us for Best Picture, like those really dramatic looking, like Oscar type of, and it's like, look, if Endgame doesn't get in, Far From Home isn't getting in.
No Way Home's a better movie than Endgame.
Oh yeah, no, I agree with you, it absolutely is. Yeah. But since when does that have since when does quality have to do anything to do with the Oscars?
Question though, I want to poll the 3 of you, because I kind of agree with this sentiment, which I saw a lot of people sort of commenting, which is, does it really deserve a Best Picture nomination?
Yes.
Well,
yes,
the picture?
I'll give you my reasoning. It's, first of all, I mean, this goes back to a zillion conversations we've had on the show. Sure. Well, you asked the questions. I mean, we going back to all the zillion conversations we've had on the show about the Academy Awards and what an Academy Award worthy film is. And, they always, for the most part, leave out action, horror, superhero films, comedies. It's generally a drama or an Oscar type of film. And I believe that No Way Home is a great film regardless of genre. It is well directed. It is well performed. Holland's performance is brilliant. Everybody in it is delivering incredible performances. It's directed well. The action's incredible. The script is great. I do not see a reason why. I mean, this is a quality film. It's not just a popular movie. That's the one thing I really hate about the discourse online right now, is that everyone is saying like, oh, because they should be giving it a popular award, or popular movies deserve to be nominated. I think it's a quality thing. It's a quality good movie. I want to ask one question. This is a visual for people who are watching on YouTube, but we're about to do our top 10 lists of the year.
We're not going to give away any kind of spoilers or reveals, but raise your hand if Spider-Man No Way Home is on your list of the 10 best films that you saw in 2021. There we go. I mean,
there's your answer.
All 3 of us raised our hands.
Yeah, I'm telling you, it's a quality, great film. It's not. I don't care how much money it made. I don't care how popular it is. It is a great film that deserves to be nominated. I don't care about popularity. It doesn't have anything to do with that.
Well, I don't know if here's another popular film that's going to get nominated and actually be a contender, and that's on all of our top. I'm assuming on all of our top 10 lists. So
it's not this popular though.
No, but it should be. Look. I'm not saying that I know a lot about winning awards, but like sometimes the rightful winner wins, right? And sometimes maybe the person who's supposed to win wins. That's all. Right. That's
right.
Yeah, you believe in the system, is what you're saying.
Well done. You guys need to fast forward to whatever point this was on the YouTube video and bask in Jake's glory necessarily. All right, so let's get to this week's.
Wait, where are you guys at? Do you guys think it actually deserves a nomination? Sean, you do. Jake, you don't?
I 100% think it deserves it.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't think there's any point in doing 10 nominees if we don't consider films like this. Will say...
Like, what does that mean, like this? That's the issue I have. Like,
films
it's
that otherwise wouldn't be...
No,
what I'm talking about is like how angry I got when The Dark Knight, like a movie that crosses a threshold, is what I mean when I say like this. A movie that crosses the threshold because popcorn film elicits a certain reaction. And it's like, no, like there can be great popcorn films. Like Dark Knight was a massive blockbuster. It was also one of the greatest films ever made. And it literally was the reason they created the whole 10 nominee system. So then include films like The Dark Knight. Like, that's the whole purpose.
Because they had 10 prior, like years ago, right? And then they went back to 5.
They did 5 for
then
the
they went to
longest
10.
time. Yeah.
Because the reader ended up getting that spot from what we understand. But I just don't want to live in a world anymore where we're dealing with films like, for example, Robin Williams and Mrs. Doubtfire. That doesn't get nominated because it's a comedy? That's ridiculous.
I know. We've had the discussion. We've had the discussion.
I think Avatar got a Best Picture nomination.
It
like,
did.
Avatar feels to me
we're
like
talking about good movies.
Like the biggest parallel to a box office success that should power through. No, it's not a good movie. Okay, we're going to move on. We have a guest this week. It's director Simon Kinberg, who has a film coming to theaters called The 355 with a tremendous cast. And he's going to talk to you all about putting that cast together and whose idea this movie was and how it exists in the world of James Bond. And then, as Kevin pointed out, has a terrific story about his work on Mr. and Mrs. Smith with Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie. So you don't have to listen to me set it up. You can listen to him tell it. Simon Kinberg on the ReelBlend podcast. I'm going to kick us off and just say that I loved that the character of James Bond exists in this movie and in this universe. He gets referenced because personally, whenever I hear the conversation about, the idea of casting a female Bond, I tend to think, why don't we just create a different an incredibly skilled and badass spy character of their own? And that's exactly what you end up doing with the 355. And so I want to know if you can maybe elaborate on if that's your thought process also, and maybe just the difficulties of launching something new versus, squeezing actors and actresses into an existing IP like Hollywood likes to do.
Well, yeah, I mean, I grew up a huge fan of the James Bond movies. I should start there. And I've always wanted to do a sort of straight spy film. I wrote Mr. and Mrs. Smith, but it's not exactly a spy movie. It's more of a rom-com. And this idea came from Jessica Chastain. We were on the set of another movie. We'd done a couple movies together, actually, and had become close friends. And she said, what if we did a female ensemble spy movie? And, there's a lot in there that's actually pretty novel. Obviously, female spy movies are fairly rare, but also ensemble spy movies are incredibly rare. You get Bourne and Bond and Kingsman and down the list, but you don't usually get like Ronin is probably the last one I can think of that was kind of an ensemble spy movie. So I got really excited about the opportunity to do something fresh in a genre that I love. And immediately we started thinking about the paradigm of obviously the ultimate spy, a movie spy being James Bond, and how we could play with that, how we could play with even the notion of like the Bond girls. And so we knew that somewhere in the movie we would want to reference James Bond because we wanted the movie to feel like it lived in the real world. And in the real world, James Bond, not the actual spy, but the movie character exists. And so, to further differentiate, other than their gender, to further differentiate our movie and our characters from that franchise, we referenced it. And in terms of your question of doing an original movie versus something based on a big piece of IP or a sequel, and I've done that. I lived in the X-Men universe for a long time, and I really enjoyed it. I think we're living in an interesting time right now where there is huge opportunity to do original work, mostly in the streaming space. There isn't as much opportunity in the theatrical space to do a big movie or a genre movie in that space. Certainly, there's still art house movies, but less and less chance to do something really entirely original.
Like we see Red Notice goes to Netflix, and
yeah, Red Notice, I mean, it's every now and then you get a movie like Free Guy that was an original film, and a big hit movie, and really well done. But it's harder, and when you get the opportunity to do it, you really want to take advantage of that opportunity, and more often than not, you're relying on movie stars to be the IP themselves, and in our case. We wanted to put together the best cast of actresses that we could from the most different cultures, continents, really make it a global spy movie. Because more often than not, you're used to seeing the white British or American spy. So that also was fairly novel or new about the movie as well. And so, yeah, it's harder. We made this movie a little differently than a normal studio movie. We put it together, Jessica and I, with the actresses, and then went to the Cannes Film Festival and sold it at the Cannes Film Festival market, the US and the UK, to Universal, who are our big partners on the film, and then to different distributors in different places around the world. And so we had a lot of creative freedom when we were making the movie. So it wasn't just an original film, it was an original film made kind of like an indie film. And that was fun. And that was very different for me because I do come from the world of Sherlock Holmes, Cinderella, X-Men, Deadpool, Logan, Murder on the Orient Express. Most of the movies I've made, frankly, have been based on big pieces of IP. And it's a gift and a curse. The gift is obviously you have a big built-in audience, and you have an opportunity to usually spend a lot of money because the studio has a lot of trust in the title. But you also have some boundaries or limitations creatively because you do want to satisfy the fans, and are often a fan yourself. Like I'm a fan of everything that I've ever adapted, including Cinderella. And you don't want to do wrong and make a Cinderella where she doesn't get the prince at the end of the movie. Right. So, that's there are rules that you have to abide by, and in an original you make your own rules.
Mm-hmm. Simon, I'm a huge fan of Junkie XL. Tom is an incredible composer, and his score really stood out for me in this film, just as a character itself, in terms of like really moving the movie along. And I feel like his scores are just so powerful. Obviously, what he did with Mad Max Fury Road and everything he's done, there's a powerful impact that his music has on every scene. So I wanted to know if you can talk about like working with him. Do you direct almost him as an actor in a sense of, because his music is a character in itself, and the idea of like the way it puts the fight scenes together, it just flowed beautifully.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because I love Junkie. Tom. Tom is his real name.
Hulkenberg, right? Yeah,
Tom Hulkenberg. Junkie XL is his DJ and professional name, and producer name. What's extraordinary about Tom, I'm going to call him, because Junkie just seems like...
it sounds weird, like Junkie XL.
Yeah. Well, Junkie as like a one name sounds out of context, a little bit bizarre. But so our composer, Tom, I'd worked with him on Deadpool and had an extraordinary time working with him. What he did with Mad Max, I thought was not just a character to the movie. I thought that in Mad Max, he created a tone to that movie too. I mean, obviously, everybody created the tone, from the director to the actors to the cinematographer. But Tom was a huge part of that. And one of the things that I find that people, the composers who are the best, that I've worked with at least, and I've worked with some of the best. I've worked with Hans Zimmer. I've worked with Max Richter. I've worked with Tom now. And what they do is they bring character, emotion, and tone. And one of the things I really wanted this movie to feel like was that it wasn't a sort of like static, serious, formal kind of film. I wanted it to feel messy and active and kinetic, and aggressive. And that is something that Tom, I would say, does as well or better than anybody else.
Yeah.
And so he did it with the action. I think often he did it even inside of some kind of mini action sequences, or sort of transitional moments in the movie. He has a restlessness about him as a composer that I think lends itself extraordinarily well to action movies. It lends itself well to any movie where you want momentum to the storytelling. So yeah, he was great, and he's just a great guy. He's a lot of fun. He has fun doing what he's doing. Composing for movies was kind of always a dream of his, and so he's like a kid who's getting to live out his dream, which is always lovely, in any category when you're working with that, whether it's a movie star or it's a cinematographer or whomever. And in terms of directing him, it was a lot like directing the actors in the sense of it was deeply collaborative, and he had as many ideas as I had. Which is something that I always love from the greatest actors or the greatest crew members. And so he came with tons of sounds. And one of the things that he came with that I loved and we used immensely in the movie was just these drums.
Yes.
Yeah, because Mad Max was drum heavy too, right? That it's so great. Yeah.
Yeah, there's like and I don't know if that comes from his DJ years of like knowing the power of beats, but there's a percussive energy to the score, and it lends a percussive feeling to the action and to really the sort of overall tone of the movie. And one of the things that percussion does, other than speed, right? Because like it can syncopate in the way that like most other instruments can't to speed, is that it also is organic. Drums are different than synthesizers.
Yeah.
They feel
tribal.
They're tribal. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And he certainly used them in a tribal way in Mad Max.
Yeah.
And, and I think a little less so in our movie, certainly, because our movie is less sort of over the top tonally. But yeah, he did some of that for us too, and he's fantastic. And again, just a great human being, which is always a pleasure.
It's a great score too. So yeah.
Simon, whenever you're working with a big ensemble piece like this, I mean, one of the many things you can compliment these actresses for is that they all take ownership over these roles. But I'm curious if it's so much so that could they come to you and say, we've been thinking about it, and I want to trade with Penelope, or like, no, I want to trade with Jessica. Like, is there ever a point where they have the right to almost like baseball trading cards, like trade roles in a way?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much of it was trading. Certainly, there'd be moments where they would trade maybe moments or lines, or they would ask another actress before they would ask me, because there's a sort of respect among actresses, certainly of this caliber, where they'd ask the actress, are you comfortable if I say this, knowing that it will prompt you to have to say something different than is scripted? But when you say, are they allowed to, they were not just encouraged, but it was just part of the deal. I mean, making this movie, I certainly have the title of director of the film, but I consider myself part of a collaborative team or family that made the film. So in some ways is the filmmaking team. And I don't mean that in the general sense of the sort of like, everybody that was on set was part of that team, though, everybody on set is part of a team. But the team I'm talking about is really the actresses and Sebastian and Edgar and myself. And we spent so much time on set, off set, on weekends, before we ever started shooting, building these characters, building these scenarios. And it goes all the way back from the beginning. Again, this was Jessica Chastain's initial idea. Then Jessica and I just started spitballing ideas. Then we got the actresses together and they spitballed ideas. They constructed their characters from scratch in many ways. I mean, Penelope's character, when we originally imagined her, was this sort of spitfire character. And Penelope was like, no, I want to do something the exact opposite. I want to be a mom who's has a family and has never been out in the field and is the fish out of water. And we loved that idea. And that was an idea that was completely out of Penelope's imagination.
That's awesome.
Wow.
And so, and Jessica had really specific ideas about her character. Every down the line, everybody did. Lupita had really specific ideas about her character in terms of being a computer expert, which is not something that we originally
The scar.
had. Yeah.
Yeah. Is there a story behind the scar?
I was wondering that.
The story behind the scar is that Lupita, as you would imagine, given the sort of nuance and depth of work she's done, gets really into research for the character. And so we had an expert who is a computer expert who'd worked in military intelligence and all kinds of other arenas that were relevant to her character. And he spent an immense amount of time with her, so much so that he would write me sort of lines to replace some of the kind of, filler BS Googled hacker dialogue that I've written. He gave me the real deal stuff. And he himself had that scar. And so she actually wanted to like almost fully inhabit this real person, even though he's very, very different than her character. And so that's where the scar came from.
That's cool.
That's so again, that's a small example and a physical example rather than a dialogue one, where she was like, I had this idea to put this scar on my face, and I was like, cool, just gives you more personality. It gives you more of a sense of history.
Right.
And I think it also, one of the things that was important to me, and certainly was important to the actresses about this movie, is that it didn't feel as though it was a glamorization or a glam of a spy movie. And I think that so many times when you do have female spy movies or female action movies, it can sometimes fall into the trap of being, feeling like it's like glammed up, as opposed to what real spies in the field do and look like and deal with. And certainly, obviously, we have 5 extraordinarily beautiful women. That's unique, probably to the real world. But within that context, our actresses really wanted it to feel, again, as sort of real and as grounded and gritty as possible. So the scar really helped with that tone.
So there's a specific scene I would love for you to break down for us, if you could. It's not a spoiler, but a lot of times we've all seen so many action films that a lot of times when you get to a fight sequence, you can almost glaze out, like, okay, well, how? But when choreography really kicks in and it's different, you sit up and take notice. And there's a moment in a scene where Lupita's character turns off the lights. And your characters are fighting in the dark, and there are these multiple flashes, where you sort of see the action. And we've seen that done before, but I've never got a chance to ask a director of like, do you choreograph everything that we don't see? Like, how do you shoot that? Do your actors know when they're going to be lit and what they need to show? Like, can you just maybe elaborate a little bit on how that gets put together?
Absolutely. That fight that you're talking about, which is sort of Lupita's character, like you said, turns out the lights, and then they're fighting in the dark, and the flashes are in fact gunshots that are lighting those moments. The actresses and the stunt people who stand in for the actresses for some of it, but the actresses in this case did pretty much almost all of their stunts. Some of them crazy stunts, like Jessica jumping off of when to the outside of the docks, she ran down that beam, across that beam. She jumped off onto the thing on the boat. They really wanted to do their stunts. Again, they wanted it to feel as real as possible. So, and they really learned the fights. We luckily have Jessica as a former ballet dancer, so she's actually someone who memorizes stunt stuff really quickly, fight stuff really quickly. Diane similarly, and they did the bulk of the fighting. They got to do it all because they don't know when those lights are going to flash. And obviously, they're not actually muzzle flashes. They're lights that we use. So we have a sense of it, but from take to take, and there's many takes and there's many angles that you're shooting of a fight. So let's say even you get it in one take, you've still got a new angle to move to. So you've probably got a minimum of 3 to 5 angles that you're setting up. And in truth, you're really doing each of those angles, even if you're good, 3 to 5 times. So it's if you do the math, that's 15 to 25 times you're doing that fight at a minimum. And I know many directors that would use many more cameras than that, more setups. And we may have, I don't remember, to be honest, but so you're not sure entirely when those flashes are going to go off. And when they go off, you're not sure how much of the depth of the field you're really going to be able to see. So you want to make sure that whatever you are seeing, everybody's actively fighting. It's not like a millisecond before the light goes off, it's go, and then it's freeze, and then it's go again.
Right.
Partly also because that would just be dangerous. It's actually weirdly safer to have people know their choreography, do it, hope that you don't miss by half an inch and punch somebody in the nose. But if you've rehearsed enough, you're not going to punch somebody in the nose. They do it all. And those lights are not random, but they're not perfectly timed. And you're piecing it together in the edit room from 25 different takes.
Wow.
It looks really cool.
Yeah, it's an amazing scene. Simon, one of my favorite moments in the film is it's earlier on, I guess, but when they're sitting around talking about their first missions and like there's this great story that they're all telling their stories because Penelope had just kind of like gone through her first like in-field mission essentially. I want to flip that a little bit. I was wondering, do you remember your first time ever on a movie set, walking on a set and kind of like what movie or show it was, and like how, if you were to tell like that story in that group setting, how would you explain your remembrance of it?
I remember it very vividly. I was 20. I was in my 20s. I wrote Mr. and Mrs. Smith as my film school thesis.
Doug Liman.
Yeah, and Doug did an extraordinary job of directing it, and we made other movies since, and he's a good friend and an extraordinary filmmaker, and he had just come off of The Bourne Identity, speaking of great spy movies. Really a masterpiece of a spy movie. We somehow, that I sold the movie, somehow we got, these incredible, perfect actors to play the parts, and Doug couldn't have been hotter. He'd made Swingers, Go, Bourne in a row, and then our movie, Smith. So it was like he was really like on the steepest escalator you can imagine.
That's a good run. That's a good run.
Go was amazing.
It's an amazing run. Yeah, it's a start a career. It's an amazing run. And so my first day on set was, we were shooting on the Fox lot. We shot Mr. and Mrs. Smith in Los Angeles. It's the only film I've ever shot in my hometown. Of the 20-something movies I've been on the set of, probably maybe 30 movies I've been on the set of that I've had something to do with. Only one in LA. I thought they'd all be in LA. I thought it'd all be as good as just waking up and rolling out of bed and going to work. But
you probably have Canadian residency at this point.
There was a stretch when we were making X-Men and Deadpool movies where I spent, I think it was 7 or 8 years, where I spent more time in Canada than the US. So yeah, all of them in Canada. I had actually bought an apartment in Montreal. So, at any rate, having said that, the first day on set for me was, I showed up on set, and I remember the actors weren't obviously there yet, and they were getting made up. It was the therapist's office that starts and ends Mr. and Mrs. Smith.
Yeah.
So I saw these 2 empty chairs, a therapist office in the background, nothing in the foreground because the camera never looked toward the therapist. So it was just a half shell of a set. And I remember looking at these seats and thinking, God, this was in my imagination as a college student. And in a matter of minutes or hours at the most, Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie are going to be sitting in those seats in what is actually the first scene of the movie.
Wow.
And it was an extraordinarily surreal moment, because I was in this huge sound stage on this little set of a therapist's office, waiting for, the biggest movie star in the world, Brad Pitt, and Angelina, one of the biggest movie stars in the world at that point, as well, to sit in and become and inhabit these characters. And
wow.
Yeah, I remember it. And I remember also Doug turning to me and saying, we will know within an hour if we have the movie or not. Really? I don't know what that means. As my first day. And he said, well, we'll know if they have chemistry.
Yeah.
We'll know if there's chemistry between the two of them. And didn't take an hour. Within the first take, Doug looked at me and he's like, we got it.
Yeah, they had it. They certainly had it.
Certainly history has, no spoilers, the history has shown us that they had it for many years after that. And it certainly showed as actors on screen in that film.
What a story. Thank you for sharing that. That's crazy. With that in college? I had no idea that. That's insane.
Wait, did you say Mr. and Mrs. Smith was your college thesis?
It was my it was my MFA thesis. So it was a graduate film school.
What did you get? Like, did they grade that? Like, did you get a grade on
it? The actual funny story is it's a pass fail, so I passed. I left school a little early because of that and other things. I got really lucky and I started working while I was still in school. And so I went to Columbia Film School in New York, and I felt like I had to move out to Los Angeles because a lot was happening in my career. And so I still owed a few credits to graduate, but I didn't really have time to go back to school because I was now like actively working in the craft in the industry. And so I called the dean of the school, and I said, look, I'd really like to graduate. My parents paid the money to put me through graduate school, and I put the time in, but I do owe these credits, and I'm not sure when I'm going to have time to take the classes. So he said, write, and I think I was done shooting Mr. and Mrs. Smith, but not editing it. And he said, well, write a paper on the making of Mr. and Mrs. Smith, and we will give you a credit per page. I wrote a 15-page paper about the making of Mr. and Mrs. Smith. It's somewhere on a computer somewhere back in 2002 or 3. The movie came out in 2005. So yeah, it would have been probably 2003.
You got to release that on the anniversary.
Yeah, I'd say I'd love to see it. I'd love to read it.
And so would I. When I tell you it's on a laptop from 2003, I've had a lot of laptops in 2003. I'm sure it's on a floppy disk somewhere, but it's hard for me to find. I was actually just moving recently, and I found back then the dailies used to be on DVDs. And I have all the dailies on DVD for Mr. and Mrs. Smith. So those will be worth something someday.
Wow.
Wow.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Simon, I'm going to squeeze in one more before we have to cut you loose. So I like Kevin, I work for a morning show here in Chicago, and it's and kind of like a movie set. It's part of an ensemble. It's myself and my co-anchors and my fellow reporters and a lot of great people behind the scenes. And so about once a month, we all try to get together and go out for a beer or maybe go grab lunch after the show. And it's important for us to be able to have that like friendship outside of a set. How important is it for you, for your actors, when you're working for an ensemble, to go grab a bite to eat, go grab a beer after you're done filming? Like when did Jessica and Penelope and the entire gang, do they just hang out as friends when you call cut at the end of the day?
I think it's incredibly important when you have an ensemble. For the ensemble, if the ensemble are friends, right? There are definitely ensemble movies where the ensemble are rivals the whole time, and you maybe want to foster that. But when they are there's a burgeoning friendship happening within the group, you really want that chemistry between the actors off screen that they're showing you on screen. And so, yeah, when we were making the movie, luckily we had that kind of chemistry, and we would go to dinners and we would go out. We shot in London and Paris primarily, and it was great fun. It was a lovely summer that we all spent together. There were a lot of birthdays. Not everybody, but a lot of us had kids. My 2 sons came, but my partner was pregnant with our baby girl. And so like Penelope brought her kids and Javier to set all the time. And we all they were there all summer. And so we had a lovely time. And there was a lot of off-camera camaraderie that translated to the chemistry that you see on screen.
That's awesome.
Outstanding. Simon, we were so excited to get you on the show. You're always a great conversationalist with a ton of amazing stories. So thank you for coming on ReelBlend, and hopefully we'll get you back on soon.
I'd love it. It was really nice.
And also shout out to Lee Smith. Shout out to Lee Smith, one of the best editors in the business, man.
Literally the best, buddy. The best editor in the business. Yeah. Always shout out to him. All right. Thank you.
We want to thank Simon Kinberg for joining us on the show, and thank you to Universal Pictures as well, too, for giving us time with him. The 355 is going to be in theaters starting this week. Okay, first show of 2022, which means that we are going to spend one last episode looking back on 2021. Well, I guess that's not true, because when the Oscars come out, we'll start looking back on 2021 as well, too. But we want to give you guys our collective top 10s and talk you through the movies that meant the most to us. So, Gabe, you have a whole system laid out. Why don't you tell the people how we're going to do this so that we can stay somewhat efficient with this?
Yes, so this shouldn't be overly complicated. Everyone is going to go through their top 10s individually. We're going to go through everyone's number 10, then everyone's number 9, and so on and so forth. The one thing that we're going to do to kind of keep things nice and tidy is if someone makes a pick, but that same movie appears higher in the list, they're going to save their discussion until we get to the highest point that it arrives on the list. And then we'll just all have a roundtable discussion about why we love that movie. For example, if Jake picks a movie at 10, but it's on Kevin's number 5, then we'll wait until it gets to Kevin's number 5, and then all of us can discuss. And that's pretty much straightforward. And then when we're done, You could do the math at home if you want, but I have already done it, and I will reveal
I'm so
our
excited.
top 5 as a show. Our top 5
God, I really
movies
don't want Barb and Star to be on
I hope it's on there.
It's not on mine, so it didn't get any points from me.
That'd be hilarious.
It's well, it'll be
deserves
interesting.
to be on
and I've
there.
got some fun stats to go along with that. So we can go ahead and get started. I think we're starting with Jake's number 10, but I'll let you take it away, Sean.
Oh,
we
beautiful.
are, Jake. Why don't you start with your number 10? And you're going to discuss this because I don't think it shows up in anyone else's list.
Oh, I'm surprised it's not on Kevin's list. My number 10 is Zola. A movie that it was just really, it's one of those, like, if it weren't an almost true story, you wouldn't believe it kind of film. The structure in which this was made, it was made with such a frenetic energy that I was captivated while watching it. It's both fun to watch, which sounds like a weird word, but also horrifying, disgusting, hilarious all at the same time. Coleman Domingo, I really think it's probably the performance that it bothers me the most that he's not in the awards conversation. I mean, his Oscar moment, the clip is right there. Like, the clip that they would show is right there. Like, it wouldn't stand pick it out.
What's fascinating about that clip, though, is that out of context, it wouldn't make sense.
Sure.
Because because for people who haven't seen Zola, and weirdly enough, Zola is my number 12.
I knew it had to be really close on yours.
I went to 13 because I had Bo Burnham's Inside at 12, or I'm sorry, 11, and then this was 12, and then Coda was 13. But not to take away from Jake, and I want to continue your top 10, obviously, and your number 10 here. But this Coleman Domingo scene that he's referring to, the whole film prior to this moment, he has a different accent. And he seems like this like fun guy, but he's obviously, there's like a shadiness to what's going on, to what the characters are doing. And Jake was referring to this scene where he turns around in the car and just completely changes his accent into a different person. It's one of the most terrifying moments I've seen in a movie in a long time.
Because you're in the back seat with Zola in this moment where you realize just what you've gotten yourself into.
Right. It's horrifying.
And it's genuinely terrifying. And Sean, I can't remember where you fell on it. Were you a fan?
I liked it a lot. It didn't make my top 10. It didn't stick with me, I think is part of the reason why. I liked it a lot while I was watching it. I thought it was really fascinating. It made me want to go research a lot more about it, but I don't think I've gone back to it since.
One of my favorite interviews of the year was with the director of the film that we had on ReelBlend.
She was terrific. Yes.
Jessica Bravo, go check it out. It was a great interview.
I'll say this, we should plug all the interviews that are tied to these top 10s for people who are maybe finding our show for the first time. But she gives a great story about that really crazy montage. But I will say this, Shot Super 16. I actually revisited it on New Year's Eve. I watched it New Year's Eve again. And when you make your top 10 list and you release your top 10, there's always like one or two that you go, how did I forget that one? And that for me was Bo Burnham's Inside. I wish I readjusted my list to have him on there. I just don't know what I would have taken off. But
that's the problem.
Yeah, it is a movie. It's considered a movie. Yeah, okay. I mean,
it's like a special. Yeah, it's like a comedy special, but it's also like an art house movie.
I'm not going to argue against it
because there's definitely fiction to it. Like it's not just like a traditional comedy like structure. It's
brilliant.
like he's definitely playing a character who's going insane, but is also probably going. It's fascinating.
I had a really weird moment when I was home for Christmas with my mom and dad, and we live in this weird bubble where like we watch things and we have different takes and our viewpoints. And my mom's in her mid 60s or whatever. And so I sat down, I was like, Mom, check out this movie, Bo Burnham's Inside. So I'm sitting on the couch. I'm like, Mom, this movie's brilliant. Like you can't wait for you to see it. She was not into it at all.
Yeah, I was about to say, I don't think I can pay my mom to watch that.
But I found that interesting because I think it's one of the best films best things or specials I've seen in a long time. Yeah. But the age gap of how that film hit was completely different. It did not translate for my mom at all. And she watches movies all the time. And I honestly didn't realize that until watching my mom's face during the movie. I'm like, she had no idea what was going on.
And is there anything more uncomfortable than trying to show something you love to someone who doesn't get it? I will never forget showing Moneyball.
Someone picks up their phone and starts like texting or doing something when...
Dude, I showed Moneyball to my neighbors. It was my number one movie of the year. And not only, like, that's when I realized how incredibly slow that movie is if you're not into it.
Yeah, you're so right. You actually feel the slowness for a film you might love when you're watching it with someone doesn't like it. You almost go, wait a second. This is kind of slow. Wait. It is a question. Yeah, it's weird. Anyway,
Kev, go to number 10 and you get to discuss it.
Oh, is this not on anybody else's list?
Apparently
It's
not.
not.
I'm actually shocked it's not on Sean's list.
Okay.
It's not.
It's
All right.
Spider-Man No Way Home.
It is Spider-Man No Way Home. I went Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings.
I was surprised when I saw this on your list, to be honest with you. I didn't know you liked it that much.
Oh, I loved it. And I'll tell you what happened. So, again, home with my parents for Christmas. And my
Also
parents
a ReelBlend
are...
guest, by the way.
Yeah, my mom and my dad actually came up and asked a question at our live DC show. And
2 years ago.
Yeah, I was sitting down with him. My dad had Disney Plus on his TV. I'm like, Dad, have you seen Shang-Chi yet? Because he had never seen the first Doctor Strange. I put that on. He was blown away by that. And I realized that they watched the big, huge, massive, like the Avengers and the Captain Americas. Yeah. But for characters they weren't familiar with, like Shang-Chi or Doctor Strange prior, they didn't really have interest in watching the solo films. Mm-hmm. So I put on the bus scene from my mom and dad, and they were blown away. So then when I left after Christmas, they watched the whole movie and absolutely loved it. Nice. And that goes to that point I just made about Bo Burnham. It's interesting how that landed with my parents, but Inside didn't for some reason. But in terms of Shang-Chi, I mean, like again, went into this film not knowing a ton. What really made this film make my list, to be honest with you, is all throughout the time period after the film came out was Simu Liu sharing these incredible behind-the-scenes moments of what he actually did on set. Like, for example, there's that crazy scene on the bus where he like goes on the top and he slides down to the door. Mm-hmm. He really did that. I mean, like, obviously it was a set, but at the end of the day, the commitment that guy had to the role is just incredible to me. Right. And like, there's something great. I love hanging out with him and Awkwafina's character. I think they have so much fun together. It's Tony Leung, who's absolutely incredible in the film as well.
Yeah, great villain.
Yeah, incredible. And I just really, really think that the film was a surprise to me. I didn't know much about Shang-Chi. I think even going into Shang-Chi, I think we were all like, is anyone going to see this movie? Because no one knew the character. I mean, not nobody, but general audiences, I felt like didn't know the character. But yeah, I thought emotionally it hit. I thought the score was great. But that bus fight scene, no question, is the reason why it's on my list. I mean, if you watch that, there's a oneer in that moment where he is walking down the bus, taking out the bad guys, and I think he finishes it with that split kick with his legs up, which is so badass. But yeah, I mean, to me, like, that film was a shock. Do I have problems with some of maybe the CGI in the third act? Sure. But that bus fight to me was one of my favorite scenes of the whole year. That's why it's number 10 on my list. And my parents loved it.
Destin Daniel Cretton, guest of the show. Make sure you go back and dig up his episode as well too.
By the way,
this is gonna be fun. I want to do this throughout the entire show. I want to name drop everyone we get.
Wait till we get to West Side Story.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So the Destin interview, I want to plug something. If you've never heard it, he tells this insane story about a shot in the film that he directed from a hospital where his wife had just given birth to their child, and he wasn't able to be on set, so they FaceTimed him in so he could direct the scene from there. Go listen to the episode. It's incredible to hear that story.
Very cool. All right, pick number 10 for me is one that we're going to save because it's going to show up a little bit later on someone else's list. It is Zack Snyder's Justice League. We will discuss the Snyder Cut in depth when we get there, so that brings us back
Sean,
around
what do you know about the Snyder Cut?
Jake's number 9 pick.
My number 9, I'm assuming I'm talking about it because no one else put it on
Correct,
the list.
you were discussing, yes.
Yeah, Daenerys loved it. Look, I really loved Malcolm and Marie. You guys remember I loved this movie earlier this year, and really, I am a confessed sucker for just scene chewy acting, just screaming and yelling. I love a good, like, cliche Oscar moment. And this movie is just that. This movie is basically 2 hours of that. It is a couple that comes home from from a premiere, and then they realize that something bad happened and annoyed one of them, and that sort of snowballs into the kind of fight that normally you don't come back from, where you start saying a lot of things that you really regret or maybe have had buried deep inside of you. I think Zendaya and John David Washington just rip into the script from the creator of Euphoria, and it's just, I absolutely loved it. I've watched it a couple of times, actually. Love the cinematography. It's the result. It's one of those, like, stuck in a home movies that was the result of COVID. Because they were like, well, let's just come up with something that we can shoot easily. And I loved it. And I'll never look at mac and cheese the same again. Or eat mac and cheese the same again.
Sam Levinson, shout out to him because he's the guy who works on Euphoria, and Marcel, I believe, the DP for Euphoria, shot Malcolm and Marie on film. And it's an incredible film. And Jake brings up the mac and cheese thing, but it's not. It sounds funny, but it's literally the most insane shot of a mac and cheese I've ever seen in a movie. But in all honesty, like that's a great pick. I actually that'd probably be my top 15 if I were to go that far down. But yeah, great film. Great choice, by the way.
To continue our trend, John David Washington, guest on the show.
Yes.
So make sure you dig up that episode and have him talk about, well, of course we talked about Malcolm and Marie, but if you think we didn't ask him Tenet questions, you don't know the show very well.
We also asked him Tenet questions when he was on for Tenet.
Yes, we did.
Yeah.
So, just double up.
Who joined him in that episode?
Yeah, who was he paired with for that? Some guy?
Some new, he was working with some young director. It was like he was trying to build his profile.
Are you saying that people should go backwards and find that interview?
If you listen to the interview backwards, it doesn't make any sense.
The trick is the interview hasn't happened yet. And we're still not ready for it. Kevin, you were on pick number 9 and you were discussing it at length.
This is not on your list,
Yeah,
Sean?
we have very varied
It's
top
not.
10s.
It is not.
Okay, I loved Licorice Pizza.
Oh, nice.
Absolutely love this film. I'm going to see it hopefully this weekend on 70mm. They're showing it on the street here. Oh yeah, no question. Gabe, did you see it?
I still haven't seen it yet, no. But hopefully I'll see it soon.
I think Gabe will like it.
Here's what I'm going to say about it real fast before you dive in. I feel like I will see this movie again later, and I'm going to regret not putting it on my top 10. I've only seen it the one time, so I had to put others above it.
So I mentioned the bus fight in Shang-Chi being a big reason why that ended up on my top 10. There's a scene in Licorice Pizza that also, I guess, would be on the same lines of like the reason why it ended up on my list. But then on top of that, Cooper Hoffman, Alana Haim, like everybody in this film is on fire in terms of like delivering great performances. What blows my mind to me is like every time, even to watch Phantom Thread, for example, where you have a scene where a character's buttering toast and it's like more intense than most action scenes I've seen. He has a way of like putting you in normal situations and creating such a masterful way for you to be immersed in it. There's a scene in Licorice Pizza where Alana and Cooper are in a truck and I think it runs out of gas, right? If I remember correctly. And it literally, it's this intense moment of it rolling down the hill, and it's a long scene, and I was on the edge of my seat more than most action scenes I've been in a long time, and it's like this non-scene of a truck running out of gas, which is just crazy. And to me, like even though Bradley Cooper's only in it for like about 10-15 minutes or so, he's phenomenal. I think PTA also DP'd a little bit of the film as well. I think he DP'd Phantom Thread as well. I could be wrong on that. But he's like, there's 2 DPs on the film. I think he's definitely one of them. Shot on film, obviously, blown up to 35, or shot 35, blown up to 70 if you get a chance to see it on 70mm. But again, this is a good time to do this. Johnny Greenwood might have had the best year out of any composer that I've seen.
What else did he work on?
He did Spencer.
Power of the Dog?
He did Licorice Pizza, and what was it?
Power of the Dog?
Yep, Power of the Dog. So all 3 of those, or Johnny Greenwood, the guitar player, lead guitar player for Radiohead, but obviously probably most known in the film world for maybe There Will Be Blood, which was like probably one of the best scores of all time. Even Kirsten Dunst said she listened to the There Will Be Blood score before shooting a scene in Power of the Dog because Johnny was scoring both, and she wanted to like get in that headspace. Because Greenwood is very famous for his scores having a horror element to them. They almost kind of like his scores remind me of how I feel watching The Shining. And I think like even Spencer, for example, I thought Spencer had a Shining vibes completely. That movie's like a straight up horror film, I thought. But Greenwood's score for Licorice Pizza is wonderful. I mean, obviously the soundtrack is great too. People are comparing it to Tarantino's Hollywood, and sure, it's the hangout film at that time. And was it the 70s for Licorice Pizza, and Hollywood was 69. So same
more
time
Days
period,
of Confused
essentially.
To me,
Yeah,
I put him more on that.
But under the umbrella of like hangout films, like
Last thing I'll say about it though is Cooper Hoffman. There's a sense that when you watch the film that he could have easily been a distraction in terms of like, oh, that's Philip Seymour Hoffman's son. But from the moment he was on screen till the end of the film, I was just immersed in his character.
He's so confident.
He's unbelievable. And then there's like the beauty of the movie is PTA does capture some great moments where maybe he'll smirk like Philip Seymour Hoffman. And then as a fan, considering PTA's history with Philip Seymour Hoffman and obviously Boogie Nights and Magnolia, and I think they did Hard 8
Punch Drunk.
to get Punch Drunk. Wait, Hoffman was in Magnolia as well, right? Yeah.
The Master.
There's the Master.
Oh my God.
PTA, God, his filmography is absurd.
What's great too is that they're all so different. You know, like he doesn't just he doesn't remake the same movie at all. It's crazy how varied his filmography is.
But you do get a little bit of Philip Seymour Hoffman come out a little bit in the performance in just the perfect places where you got to go. You kind of get a little warm in your heart to see kind of his dad's legacy living on through this film, because Philip Seymour Hoffman will always remain alive through the medium of cinema, and that's the beauty of movies. So I just love that Cooper did it, and it's a great performance, and it wasn't just he's Philip Seymour Hoffman's son. He delivered a damn great performance, and I love that movie.
All right, number 9 on my list is I Care a Lot with Rosamund
Great
Pike.
choice.
With just a terrific movie. It's available on Netflix. I don't think a lot of people know about it. I kind of don't want you to know about it. I want you to go into the story as blind as possible if you haven't watched it yet. Here's what I'll give you. Here's the setup. Rosamund Pike plays a woman who essentially abuses the court system to take legal guardianship over senior citizens. She has a judge who's kind of in her pocket, and she has a nurse who's kind of in her pocket, who recommends people who probably need someone to come over and take over their finances legally, and she gets them declared. What's the way to phrase it? Basically that they are unable mentally to continue taking care of themselves, and she bites off more than she can chew when she takes on one lady played by the amazing Diane Wiest, and it turns out that Diane Wiest is not unable to take care of herself, and then it keeps going downhill from there very quickly. And I don't want to tell you all the places it goes, but it is as pitch dark and smart and totally surprising as any film that I've seen this year. It's great because I knew nothing going into this movie. It's so rare that we get a chance to do that. I heard good things about it at the end of last year, but I caught up with it on Netflix and was blown away by it. And then doing a rewatch over this past holiday break, PJ happened to walk into the room when I was in like the first 5 minutes of it, and he was standing there watching it. Then he sat down, and then he goes, pause it. And I paused. He goes, how much was on before I came down? And I was like, 5 minutes. And he just was hooked. It just carried him through all the way to the end. Pike is amazing. Diane Wiest is amazing. Peter Dinklage is amazing. I won't tell you what he does, but put this movie on your list.
I gotta be honest,
seek
I haven't
it out.
seen it.
Dude, you
It's
have
excellent.
to play it.
Okay, I'm like you saw. Like, okay, I
Also,
know you
you
told me
have
about
to.
it a couple of times throughout the year, and I just never got
Put it
around
on
to seeing
tonight. It's on Netflix. Just put it on. I guarantee
Sean,
it'll hook you.
Sean, I love the film because it's just it's entertaining in a weird way.
Yeah.
But I also had no idea about this situation. Like,
No, I
this
know.
This is a real thing, and I didn't realize this is like a business. I mean, clearly, I know it sounds crazy to say that I didn't know it, but I didn't realize how big of a deal it was.
Yeah, 100%.
Whoa.
And one of the most terrifying moments is when Diane Wiest is essentially being told, like, oh, you're not in control of your house anymore. Like, the judge has signed it over to me. And she's like, what are you... You got to watch it. It's so amazing, and you truly have no idea where it's going the entire time. So number 9 is I Care a Lot. Jay Blakeson is a guy who directed it, and it's just one of the best ensembles I've seen this year. So we're up to pick number 8 for Jake Hamilton, who is discussing it.
I'm assuming both of you guys put it on your list, so I won't need to discuss it.
Oh, all right. Well, go ahead. What is it?
It's Finch. So I'm assuming, so I'll wait until we get to y'all's
There's
number 1 or 2.
no way that you honestly think Finch is one of the 10 best movies that came out last year.
I have watched Finch multiple times, and which also means that I have cried
on purpose,
like an ugly gagging. I gotta tell you, no movie had more of a genuine emotional impact on me than Finch. I thought it was incredibly well done. I thought Tom Hanks gave an incredible performance. It's just a fascinating. I mean, but look, if you listen to this show This is a if you took a piece of clay and molded a movie for me.
Yeah.
It's a sad Tom Hanks film that's a love letter to dogs. Like, it's basically like you might as well call the film like for Jake. Like, it is a movie that could not be more made for me, but I also thought it was incredibly well done and beautiful and emotional, and I thought in the ending hit me in the heart with a freaking sledgehammer. So I loved it.
Jake, I have a question for you. Did you ever watch my interview with Jim Carrey for Sonic, where I asked him his favorite Tom Hanks movie of all time? I was just curious if you guys saw that answer.
Oh, I know we don't have a lot of time, so I can't sit here and think about it.
How the Finch Stole Christmas?
That was good.
It's pretty good.
Thank you.
That was really good.
All right, Kev, you're on number 8, and I assume it's not Finch, but you are discussing it at length.
Well, my number 8 is your number 10.
Chappie? Oh, is it really?
Yeah, my number 8 is your number 10.
Let's go, Snyder Cut, baby!
I'm all in, man. Well, you know what? You take the floor on this. Since it was your number 10, you didn't have a chance to talk about it yet.
God. I mean, okay, so part of the reason why it was my number 10 is because there were a lot of films that were vying for that slot. Nightmare Alley could have been in there. No Sudden Move was a terrific movie that should have gotten more recognition. But the Snyder Cut is a movie that shouldn't exist. Like, it should not. The story behind it is probably more fascinating than the movie itself. But the fact that the movie itself is 4 hours and feels like a 90-minute sit is unbelievable to me. I put it on there for the historical aspect of it, that the fact that, you know, there was this director who had his movie taken away from him and his fans fought so hard to get his vision restored. I think I honestly think that it's the best DCEU movie that exists. Like, that doesn't include the Nolan trilogy, which is probably superior to it, but I think it's the best of the 3 Zack Snyder films, and I think it's far better than anything else that anyone else has tried to do in that universe. I am really annoyed that he can't continue. I wish that we lived in a reality where, you know, the multiverse meant that he can keep doing his own thing while they kept doing a Pattinson one, and we just kept going. But I understand that it's a business, and also that Zack probably, you know, burned a few bridges and made a few enemies at the upper echelons at Warner Brothers, and, you know, who's to say? But it's a terrific movie, and I think it's far better than it had any right to be. And sitting down to watch that movie when we all got screeners, think about the excitement that was like. That was a charged experience, you know. Huge. Like, I sat down with Michelle on the couch to watch it, and I was like, I can't believe that we're about to watch the Snyder Cut, like something that had been bandied about for 3 years. So I had to get it on my list. I'm glad you have it higher, Kev. How did it work for you?
Well, Sean, if you remember, I think this was early in the pandemic when it was announced that he was going to release it. You and I were like on that live stream with Snyder, and then Henry Cavill showed up after telling Jake and I that he didn't know what a Snyder Cut was a year or two prior to that. And he announced that they were going to release it. And you're right. I mean, like, the event aspect of it. And I also want to say, like, we did have Zack Snyder on the show for this movie for 30 minutes. If you missed that episode, definitely please go back and listen to it. He gives some great insight about shooting scenes in his driveway for this movie. I mean, in all honesty, I've always been a Snyder fan. So, Man of Steel and Batman vs. Superman, the R-rated cut, and obviously Dawn of the Dead. I mean, Watchmen. I was so happy that a director's vision was able to be completed, and it was wonderful on every aspect of action and performance. And I mean, you guys know that Cavill and Affleck are my favorite Batman and Superman of all time. I mean, I just love those two performances from those guys, and I think. To me, like, the score, and I know, Jake, you know, we joke about the box format, but the 4x3 and the black and white was beautiful. The
putting it in chapters too was really smart. Chapters was very smart.
So smart. And speaking of chapters, I recently rewatched Hateful Eight on the Netflix version, which is chaptered, and it's really actually interesting. But chapters are a fascinating thing. They do kind of like help with pacing in a strange way. Yeah. But yeah, the Snyder Cut is it's everything I wanted it to be. It's rated R. It's just incredibly well done, emotional, and you're right, it's the event aspect of it. The fact that we could press play on the Snyder Cut, that it actually exists, that it's there. Yep. I mean, it's one of the most incredible stories of all time. I know, you know, if you haven't read Sean's book about it, release the Snyder Cut, you get the whole story about how if you don't know this by now, about how the fans drove it to come out, which is just incredible. But yeah, that's my number 8, no question. I love that movie.
I love it. Okay, so my number 8 is one that I'm actually kind of stunned didn't make other people's lists, but it's also the movie that I know when I come back to this list 2 years from now, I might look at it and be like, I probably should have moved something else in there. But I'm going over just my gut reaction. It's The Green Knight.
Plug. That's a good plug for the premium episode that dropped this week.
I haven't gone back to revisit The Green Knight because it's dense, right? Like it's a lot going on, and it's
like
a ton of metaphor.
Like a forest.
Yeah, and I know that I need to, like, it's not just put it on the background and pay attention. You know,
No.
I mean, to like loosely pay attention to it. Like David Lowery made a extremely compelling film that I just know that when I watched it, I was totally engrossed from start to finish. I gave it 5 stars early on. But when I was looking for its placement on this list, I kept moving it down and moving it down. And I need to revisit it. I know that it has some oddness to it, but I was hooked on that oddness at the time. I just wonder how it's going to hold up on a rewatch. I wanted it represented. I didn't know 100% where I was going to put it. But so I put it at 8. And what's interesting is that, like, I've had a couple of opportunities over this past 2 weeks to like tell people that I have my top 10, and they're like, "Oh, well, what is it?" And I'll sort of rank through it. And every time I got to 8, I forgot what I put there. Every time I was like 1 through 7, bang, bang, bang. I was like, "What is 8? Damn it, I can't remember what 8 is." Well, it's The Green Knight, and I know I loved it at the time. I wonder if it's going to hold up for me, but we'll see. This is the list. This is the list for now. The lists do always change. That's kind of why I kind of love the this or that we played most recently on the premium. Because I know we're going to, well, yeah, exactly. The Irishman would be one that I was like, maybe it wouldn't have been. But it landed at number 8 for me. And so that's where we are.
And we had David Lowery on the show for it. And if you're a big, I mean, that's what's crazy about doing this show is you forget all the people we had on our show last year.
I know.
But if you're a film geek or a film nerd and you love cameras and lenses, definitely listen to that episode because it's kind of like a masterclass in filmmaking, to be honest.
Okay, now we're going to get to a couple of saves because we're going to have a couple of repeats. So Jake, name your 7, but hold on to it.
My 7, I'm surprised that you guys included it. My 7 is Spider-Man No Way Home.
Oh, there you go. 7. Kevin, what is your 7? You are also saving it. It's going to show up later.
My 7 is Barb and Star Go to Vista Del Mar, which I should have put higher now that I'm thinking about it, but we'll dive into that.
I really hope it's not on the ReelBlend top 5.
Kevin, it is my 7 as well, too, so let's dive into Barb and Star.
Oh, yes.
It's not making the ReelBlend top 5.
So I'm going to throw this out there. A good friend of the show and good friend to all of us, Josh Horowitz, who runs a podcast over at MTV, he posted something on social media where he said, "I'm still convinced this is the best scene in any movie last year," and it was at Edgar's Prayer.
Yeah.
And I can't not just bust out laughing watching Jamie Dornan commit to that song.
It's incredible.
I honestly put this movie on par with the first Austin Powers. I think people forget how brilliant and original that movie was before the gimmick just got driven into the ground. But it's a complete going out on a limb with a bizarre premise, and super weird characters that, for Jake's point of view, if it doesn't work for you, I completely understand it. But I
love Austin Powers.
I was so in tune with what they were trying to do. And I love the fact that from the opening scene with the kid on the bike, that you're instantly like, oh, wait, what is this movie? What is this going to be? And it kept me laughing the entire time through. I didn't laugh harder at anything else this year. I loved it. Kevin, I know you did too. So
I mean, it's hilarious, and it should be higher on my list. I made a big mistake, but it is. It's an incredible film. I genuinely believe Kristen Wiig deserves an Academy Award nomination. It'll never happen for the same reason why they don't nominate comedians for amazing performances like Eddie Murphy or Jim Carrey or Robin Williams. But in this case, Wiig's performance is so incredibly hard. She plays 2 characters. They're completely different. I have talked to people who have watched the film and didn't know Kristen Wiig was playing the other character.
No kidding, really. That's
funny.
Funny.
That's how great she is in the film.
Yeah.
And Kristen and Annie, they wrote the film together. They wrote Bridesmaids. But Dornan really kind of like. And it was funny because this was the role I feel like he was born to play. I mean, I feel like he's hilarious. Like he's also that funny in real life, and I think. I just genuinely love this film. It's from every particular stand. I mean, there is Richard Cheese, the gentleman who's playing the piano at the bar. And when he says, what does he say? He goes, "I'm gonna take a break," and then he's like, "Oh, I'm back." Like a second later. It's so
dude. I put
brilliant.
it on the other day to say, like, is this really gonna make my top 10? And when I got to the Morgan Freeman crab, I was like. Yeah. Oh yeah. It's making my top 10.
That movie is brilliant, and I don't care. Like that movie should be looked at and processed like any other Oscar film, in my personal opinion. Just because it's a comedy and it's wacky, it is so airtight, hilarious. And you know what? Emotionally, I cared for their arcs. I cared for that relationship. It works so well.
I feel like it should have been last year's Palm Springs, right? Like a movie that was much smarter, had a really great premise, and was ended up on everybody's radar. But for some reason, a lot of people are overlooking Barb and Star. So,
well, now that's the point of this list. You need to see it. Did we have the directors on the show?
We did. We had the director come on the show. Yes,
we talked about that really cool shot where they're
on the barge top.
Yeah, that shot is incredible. With Jamie Dornan and Kristen and Annie. Yeah.
All right. We're up to pick number 6 for Jake Hamilton, and it's one that you are saving because it's going to show up again later.
I am also picking a Jamie Dornan film, but I'm picking an actual good Jamie Dornan film. My number 6 is Belfast.
He's had a very good year. He's absolutely had a good year. Kevin, you are picking at number 6, and you are saving it also.
My number 6 is Spider-Man No Way Home, and we'll dive into that later on.
Yes, we will. And my pick number 6, I'm saving as well, too, because it's going to show up higher. Denis Villeneuve's Dune. So
at 6?
At 6, yes.
Who the hell are you?
This is a good time. Sorry. Actually, this is a good time. It's a good thing we brought this up. I meant to mention this before we started recording, but Sean, you're fired.
Yeah.
Number 6.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Have a good night.
6. I mean, I'd mentioned that you should listen to our Denis Villeneuve ReelBlend, but apparently he shouldn't have even come on the show because apparently we don't even like the movie.
Don't even say that.
Although
as a
when
joke.
I mentioned the 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1 for me are pretty flawless movies, so I'm looking forward to doing that. Should we just do a real quick 10 through 6? Jake, just read them out. Read yours out.
Well, no, I'll put them in the description if people want to catch up. Don't go there because you'll have spoilers for the rest of the list if you're using this to have fun.
That's fair. That's fair.
But I'll have all the lists in the description of wherever you are listening to this, YouTube or otherwise.
Fair enough. All right, top 5s. Here we go. The top 5 movies of 2021. Jake Hamilton is picking at 5 and discussing it.
Oh, really?
Because no one else has his 5th movie.
Wow. Okay. My number 5 was Pig.
Oh, okay. Nice.
What just a beautiful study of loss and grief. I remember when I read the description, which was Nicolas Cage lives with a truffle pig in the middle of the woods, and someone steals his truffle pig, and he goes on a mission to find. I was like, okay, so like he's doing John Wick, like this is his. And then halfway through the movie, I went, oh my god, no, this is like a really intimate, heartbreaking like study of loss and grief, whereas John Wick takes the direction of like action and murder and mayhem. This goes into the like more emotional depths of that concept, and it's just any movie that serves as a reminder that Nicolas Cage is one of the best actors of a generation, I think is astonishing, and I would love if somehow he snuck into the best actor Oscar category this year.
I think he has a shot. I think he's in there.
I think it's going to be between him and Dinklage for that number 5 slot.
Okay. I could see him getting it, honestly.
Yeah.
I think more actors are looking at what he did in Pig and appreciating it a little bit more.
Yeah, almost like
he should have won
back.
for Face Off. He should have won for Face Off.
Yes, he should have.
Well, should he have won or should have Travolta? You never know who's who.
Oh,
that's true.
Terrific point.
He did. He won for Leaving Las Vegas, right?
Mm-hmm.
He did.
And he's been nominated. He got nominated for Adaptation.
Right.
And he should have been nominated for Matchstick Men.
Yes, he should have. Well, this year, when he plays Nicolas Cage in a Nicolas Cage movie, that's when he'll.
That looks so. That movie might break this. That might break this podcast.
It's gonna break the internet. I'm telling you, if there's a Castor Troy moment where he goes into full Castor Troy,
you know
I'm
what?
done.
You know what secretly makes that movie? I haven't seen it yet, but from the trailer, what makes that movie for me? What takes it to a new level? It's a fun concept.
Sure.
And Nick Cage, modern Nick Cage, I would say could be hit or miss. Always weird in a great way.
Sure.
No negative there, but he could be hit or miss of like, is this really going to hit with me or is this going to be awful?
He still cares, unlike Bruce Willis.
Yeah. It's always interesting, but like it's hit or miss as far as like if it's going to blow me away. What gets me very hyped for this is that it is what's his name? The Mandalorian.
Oh,
Pedro Pascal.
Yeah.
It's Pedro Pascal who's playing opposite of him.
Yeah.
Pedro Pascal is brilliant, and I think Pedro Pascal is hilarious.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the fact that it's him who's going to be opposite of him, brings this to a different level of how great it could be.
Absolutely. All
Anyway.
right, Kevin, top 5. You're giving us your number 5, and you are saving it because it'll show up later.
Number 5 is Belfast.
Okay.
Oh, so where does Sean have Belfast?
And number 5 for me, I'm saving because it'll show up later. 5 for me is Coda. That brings us to number 4 for Jake, which he is discussing because no one else has it on their list. This is kind of fun. I like this. This is a good format.
Oh, wow. Oh my God. Okay. I obviously
Barb and Star.
loved fucking I loved The Last Duel.
Nice.
I thought and I actually rewatched it recently with my folks and was able to sort of appreciate the artistry behind it, the production value behind it, the moments of energy, but also quiet tension behind it. A lot of the same moment filmed 3 different times. The way Ridley Scott, what Ridley Scott did here is just astonishing. I feel like everyone gave truly incredible performances. The fact that Jodie is not somehow in the best actress conversation is astonishing to me. And I just and that the final duel itself is kind of what Ridley Scott does best. It's brutal, but it's so precisely directed. I just thought it was just an incredible cinematic accomplishment that works. I saw it on the big screen the first time, and then at home on the small screen with my parents, and works both ways.
It's really cool what they did because it's told in 3 different perspectives. So they would set the shot up, and they would do one perspective, and they would just use the shot setup to do the others. And it was just really cool how they were able to do that because it's even a simple smile that a character gives, Jodie Comer's character gives, is portrayed 3 different ways in 3 different intensities.
Yeah, or a kiss, and how a kiss is perceived 3 different ways.
Yeah. It's fascinating.
So I might be on an island here, but I would take Gucci as Ridley's 2021 movie over Last Duel.
I would go Duel.
I think Gucci is probably more fun to watch, but Duel is a better movie.
Did Sean just say he's on the island of Gucci?
I might have said that I'm on the island of Gucci. I was wondering if Kevin knew that Vin Diesel planned to remake Ridley Scott's movie.
No.
He's calling it The Last and the Furious.
Oh, The Last and the Furious. I do like that. I like that a lot.
Did you guys see that? Did you guys see that meme that was like, what are the 2 meals that Vin Diesel eats? Breakfast and Breck Furious.
That's the better joke. There you go.
That's awesome.
That's there.
People on the internet are hilarious.
All right, that was pick 4 for Jake. That was The Last Duel. Kevin, you are naming pick number 4, and you are saving it because it is going to show up even higher for people.
Yes. It's the movie based on the Saliva song, Click, Click, Boom. It's called Tick, Tick, Boom.
I cannot. Jake Hamilton is going to have to explain to us later how this movie did not make his top 10 because
it's insane.
Dead
Spoiler
inside.
alert.
You are dead inside, sir.
I liked it.
Oh God,
It's incredible.
It's a 3.5 out of 5 for me.
You're a
you'd call it
3.5 out of 5.
You would have named it Tick Tick.
Jesus, Gabe, now you're fired. It's only these 2 left.
You've been fired. You can't fire people once you're already fired.
It's only these 2 left now at this point. All right, my number 4 is being discussed because it's not showing up on anybody else's list. This is a weird one because it was in consideration for the Oscars last year, the Weirdo Oscars, and actually won 2 well-deserved Oscars. It's The Father, putting this at number 4 because it is just an incredible movie. With I would say, and this is saying a hell of a lot, one of Anthony Hopkins' greatest performances.
And I agree. And I would argue Oscar worthy.
Absolutely. Well, that's the whole thing, is that it backfired on them because they saved it to the end. That category, for people who forget, they thought it was going to go to Chadwick Boseman.
Chadwick deserved it, by the way. I'm sorry. I'm not sorry. He deserved that award. It was a phenomenal performance.
That's fine. But Anthony Hopkins ends up winning it and didn't even show. So you talk about tick tick. That's what that's.
Okay, but the story behind it wasn't that he didn't show. It was we were knee deep in COVID at the time. He was in north of England, and I believe he asked. I think they were doing some sort of a ceremony in London at the time, And because remember at the time the Oscars were very much like no one zooming in, no zooming in, no zoom.
Yeah.
And I mean, keep in mind the man's in his 80s, and I believe the story was he asked them, "Look, I'll stay up late, but I really I don't want to be in a crowd full of people.
Yeah.
Can I do this from home?" And they told him no.
That's crazy.
They
That's so
told him
stupid.
no. So it wasn't. I got a little angry at in the days after the Oscars. Everyone's like, "Oh, Anthony Hopkins didn't even show." I was like, "No, the man's in his 80s, wanted to avoid COVID, and asked for an ulterior motive to But in his speech, he paid tribute to Chadwick Boseman. It was a really nice moment.
Oh, it was beautiful. Yes, he released it the next day, didn't he?
Yes.
A video that he recorded himself.
Yeah.
So I'm ashamed to say that I did not see this movie before Anthony Hopkins won the Oscar. I didn't get a chance to catch up to it beforehand. Time crunch, COVID, and I was kind of like, how good can this actually? And it just floored me. It's one of the he's suffering from dementia, which is tragic enough, but the way that it's scripted and the way that he performs it, you're never 100% sure what's real and what isn't real, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And he is just riveting. I mean, it's one of the greatest performances that I've seen from him. It's definitely one of the best performances.
Which is
I've seen
saying
this
a
year.
lot, like you said.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So The Father made it all the way up to number 4.
Better than Red
for
2?
me. Slightly, honestly.
Sean, have you interviewed him before?
Yes, I have. Twice. I know I got him for that movie Fracture with Ryan Gosling.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good movie. Yeah.
And I got
Great
him
movie.
one other time too.
He's a fascinating interview.
He is really good.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
really,
he
really
he always jokes that I have the same name as the guy from Invasion of the Body Snatchers. That's what he always
Oh,
jokes
really?
around with me. He's like, "Yeah, do you know who Kevin McCarthy is?" I'm like, "Yeah, I know who that guy is."
good. Yeah, you told me last time.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, but he also he's interesting. I met him at a press conference once, and he's like, "Don't call me."
Anthony.
I called him like Sir. I called him Mr. Hopkins, and he's like, "No, call me Tony." I'm like, "No, I'm not doing that."
Nope.
So
Tony.
It's not happening.
Jake, you're at number 3, and you are discussing it.
Really?
Well, we're at the top of the list, so people who have
okay.
skipped
Gotcha,
are now
gotcha.
starting to catch up. They're now starting to catch up.
Okay. What the hell is
Jake's like, really?
Yeah, really.
No one else picked this?
My number 3 is Coda.
Yes.
Which I loved whenever it came out in August. Just a really quiet, intimate, beautiful story of a family. If you don't know, CODA is an acronym for Child of Deaf Adult. It tells the story of a young woman who is not deaf, but the rest of her family is. She has dreams and aspirations to be a singer in school, in college, but her family needs her. They work a shrimping boat, and a law is passed that requires them to have someone who can hear on the boat with them. So her family's saying, look, we need you to stick around. It's this really beautiful and also hilarious story of like the family dynamic. There are a lot of aspects that make the story great that have nothing to do with the fact that they are deaf, but that they are just a family like every other family out there. I thought it was beautifully written. The performances are absolutely incredible. I really would love to see it get a SAG Ensemble nomination, because everyone involved is truly incredible. And this is one that really hit me in the old tear ducts. In the final act of the film.
Dude, absolutely. I have it at number 5 for me, and it's one of those ones where it's, it was a Sundance hit, and a lot of times with those Sundance hits, I'll end up catching up with them later, and I'm kind of like, this is fine, And so I went into it with those kind of expectations, and by the halfway point, I was like, oh, this is really special.
Yeah.
That girl, Amelia Jones, is terrific.
Amazing.
I don't know what she's been in beforehand, but she is great in this film. I like the fact that it is sort of a inspirational teacher movie as well too, because of the music instructor who's coaching her through with her singing.
Mr. V.
Is that his name? Yeah.
Yeah, that's the character's name.
Yeah. So just a terrific. I mean, cannot recommend this highly enough.
Available on
lives
Apple
up to all
TV
the
Plus if you haven't seen it
expectations.
yet.
Yeah, with Finch if you want to.
Yeah.
If you want Finch, head over to that.
I do want to chime in on one thing on Kodak. I love the film too. I have it like 13 on my list, but I do love this film. But do you guys remember my favorite lines of the year? Do you remember the scene when she's sitting down with her father and he talks about? Do you remember the joke he says about farts? It's hilarious. He says, "What is it?" I think he sits down at the dinner table and he rips this huge fart, and his character is deaf. And so, obviously the daughter hears it because she can hear. And she's like, makes a face or whatever. And I think he signs and he says something like, do you know why God made farts smell bad or whatever it was? And he goes, so deaf people could enjoy them too. What a brilliant, I don't know why that just made me laugh. I mean, you guys know I have an immature sense of humor.
Yeah, we
but
know
it was
why
just
it made
really,
you laugh, Kevin.
It was funny though. It was really, it made me laugh. It was a really funny line.
All right, Kev, you're on your number 3, which we are all discussing.
We are all discussing this one?
Apparently.
Well, you're free to discuss, yes.
Oh, you are free to discuss.
But you guys don't have it on your list.
We'll find out.
I guess not.
Go ahead and reveal.
Not.
Oh, well, it's free. It's Free Guy.
Oh, yeah.
You're alone with that one.
It's all
There
you.
you go.
I'm okay with that.
That's okay.
I love this film. Probably my favorite line of dialogue all year. Ryan Reynolds' character at the end has this line where he says, I'm just, somewhere out. What is the line? I'm just a love letter to you, and somewhere out there is the author. Mm-hmm. This movie hit me at the right time when I really needed it. Sean Levy, who was on our show to discuss it, was a great guest. This was to me, this was just like, I know there's a Groundhog Day aspect to it and, the Wreck-It Ralph aspect to it, but Reynolds' character and that arc he has, as he starts to realize that he's an NPC in a video game, and Comer's performance is incredible because her character lives in the real world, but she also plays in the game and meets Ryan Reynolds' character. I thought that, who's the gentleman from Stranger Things, Joe Keery?
That sounds right.
I loved him in this movie. A great performance from him as well. It's just like, it has some of the best visual effects I've seen in any film this year as well. Like just the idea of when he puts on the glasses, but emotionally, comedically, also want to shout out Lil Rel Howery, who I think is one of my favorite actors working today. He was obviously great in Get Out. I think he had a part in Judas and the Black Messiah. And then obviously he was in Free Guy. I mean, he is incredible. And he gives this really deep, touching performance that is so grounded and such a big part of the story. Free Guy is one of those movies that I feel like people would like look at my list and go, why is Free Guy on there? But at the end of the day, it's like, it's a film that I think is really well executed, well performed, brilliantly written, and just emotionally satisfying. I love
that,
plays with.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's what our top 10s are for, because they're top 10 favorites. They're not. That's why I've been trying to tell people is that they're not the top 10. They're not what I'm saying. Or I've had literally multiple people come to me going like, "Oh, like you didn't put Power of the Dog," and I go, "Well, like Power of the Dog is like a very well made film, and it's a beautifully but like it's not one of my top 10 favorite movies of the year. Like I'm probably not ever gonna rewatch it, and that's important to note
also,
on these things.
Taika Waititi, he's great in the movie. I mean, it's like, I just loved Free Guy. And to me, it would just put a massive smile on my face. It's a film that I know I can go to that'll warm my heart. And I just
you were
think
very
Ryan
much
Reynolds
a Ryan Reynolds guy also.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
with Deadpool and...
Just
what's the one
Friends.
with the fat suit? Yeah.
Dude, The Proposal is amazing. Have you watched The Proposal recently?
No,
that
not in
movie's
a while.
Amazing.
I know, it is really smart. Yeah.
Dude, Betty White's performance in that movie, rest in peace, Betty White, obviously, and but that she's so great in that. Sandra Bullock is so great in that as well. Proposal's a really underrated comedy. I mean, Reynolds' career is fascinating to me. I mean, you had a guy who was on the top of his game with Van Wilder and Just Friends, crashed with Green Lantern, and then made this epic comeback with Deadpool. That is just, and now he's like, it's an amazing story. I mean, he could have easily crashed on Green Lantern and said, you know what? Because I don't know psychologically how you deal with something like that when a movie's that bad and it's that big of a deal and people know it's that bad, and to get back up and like really kind of push and to become even bigger and better than he ever was.
I want to see him make some more choices. Like I missed the Buried Ryan Reynolds.
Buried was awesome.
Or that
now I feel
what was that spy movie he did with who do you do that with? Did you do that with
Red Notice with The Rock?
No. The what was it? It wasn't.
I would just like to see him stop playing himself.
Yeah,
he
plays
plays
himself.
possible.
He plays himself a lot. Doesn't necessarily he can be funny in the movie, but he doesn't need to be. That's what I liked about Red Notice. He was funny in the movie, but it wasn't complete Ryan Reynolds jokes all the time. Like he had a few of them and had his sense of humor, but that character felt more well-rounded. And
see, but I think Free Guy is like one of his best emotional performances.
Sure,
like I love
totally.
Buried.
Totally,
yeah,
totally.
he's great in that movie. But again, I know a lot of people say that he's always Ryan Reynolds, and I could see that. But I don't know. I find him really entertaining and fun to watch. And he's also one of the few people on the planet that people still go out to see in theaters.
Well, you know what I think is fascinating about him as well, too, is that I don't think personally that that's the way he is. Like, he's not playing Ryan Reynolds.
Sure.
No,
but
he's not that.
he has a screen persona that he plays a lot. Yeah. But I think to him, he's saying, I'm not playing myself at all because he's very reserved and is.
He's a very quiet guy. Like when we talk in interviews, he's not that person. Right. Which is interesting. You're right. Like Van Wilder was probably the start of that persona, I would imagine. Yeah. But yeah.
Gabriel, you have a point.
Real quick, I wanted to note because we missed a couple guests. As Kevin mentioned, we had Sean Levy on for Free Guy. For Belfast, we also had Kenneth Branagh. Yeah. And although Sir Ridley Scott didn't join us for The Last Duel, we had him on for The House of Gucci, and he did discuss a little bit of The Last Duel. Yeah. So don't miss those if you did.
I asked him about Last Duel, and he absolutely did not answer it.
He answered every one of Jake's questions. It was incredible.
He got around to it. He eventually got back to it.
Hey, you know what? At the end of the day, he didn't scream "fuck you" at me, so I'm calling it a win.
I can't pick our favorite interview of this year, of the previous year. But that one's got to be up there. Yeah, it's got to be up there. But we had
it's a unique interview
and Snyder and so many great names. But
dude, Soderbergh was on our show.
He was
that's right. Oh my God.
Oh, do you know who wasn't? You know who wasn't? Spielberg.
Yeah. You know, did you guys see the story about Maggie Gyllenhaal talking about her favorite movie of the year because she was doing press for Lost Daughter and someone asked her favorite movie of 2021?
No, I don't know what it is.
Dakota Johnson.
All right, my number 3 is Sir Kenneth Branagh's Belfast. Made it all the way up to number 3 for me. Just pure joy from start to finish. It's semi-autobiographical black and white film by Sir Kenneth Branagh of a family in general, but also through the eyes of the youngest son in the family, who is using things like movies and comic books, a Thor comic book, well placed, and just the stories that are told by his extremely charming grandparents, especially Ciarán Hinds, maybe not Judi Dench so much, and his fantastic father, again played by Jamie Dornan, who we've been praising, who is trying to find work for the family, and just the political strife that's infiltrating their lives in Belfast. I knew from the very beginning that it was going to be extremely special because it has this terrific shot of this young boy, Jude. What's his name? Jude
Hill.
Jude Hill. That's right. I was going to say Jude Hall, who's pretending to be like a knight. He's running around with a sword and a shield, and you're immersed in this kid's imagination. And then explosions rip apart the street, and there's a violent protest, and the mother has to go out and grab him. And that's exactly what Belfast is. It's this dichotomy between this family trying to live their normal life and all the good things that come with it. But then all the political strife that's surrounding them constantly, and I thought Branagh did an incredible job of balancing it. It is 90 minutes, so that's as long as it needed to be. It knew exactly what it wanted to do, and it did it beautifully. And for me personally, there's the Irish aspect of it, in that I had a lot of old Irish relatives who I've been around growing up, who are very much like the characters in that movie, just in terms of them being storytellers and immersed in music. And when Sir Kenneth Branagh was on the show, we talked about the lyrical nature of the screenplay and the dialogue, and I thought it was a terrific way for him to sort of describe him putting it. So I had Belfast at 3. Where'd you guys?
It was my number 6.
6.
Yeah,
it's 5 for me. And we did ask Branagh about Dunkirk, which I did rewatch the other day for the 25th time.
Yes.
Actually, Jake brings up memes. One of my favorite memes of all time is when Branagh, they show footage of him from Dunkirk, and then they cut to the Mamma Mia ship.
Oh yes,
the boat. Yeah. It's so great.
Yes. Jake, you're at number 2, and you're saving it.
Number 2, I'm saving it. I'm assuming then for Kevin to speak on next is West Side Story.
Wait, is it not on Sean's list?
Did not make my list.
Oh, you're fired again. Twice.
I thought it was.
So can Kevin and I then talk about our Spielberg interviews?
Yeah.
Yes, of course you can. That. Yes, please do. At length. Please.
No, I absolutely. I mean, West Side Story, and honestly, if it weren't for my number 1, obviously it would be West Side Story would be my number one.
That's how it works.
It's just it is. I was just as soon as I started that sentence, I was like, this is the most nonsensical thing I've ever said.
Yeah, but I know what you mean. I know what you meant.
I mean, just everything about this movie is just top tier. I mean, Spielberg has said that he's been wanting to make a West Side Story since the 80s, and it's one thing to hear that, and then to me, when I saw the final product, I went, oh, that means you've been thinking about this since I mean, like, every shot is gorgeous. Every choice in terms of craft is the best possible choice that could have been made. Everyone does some of their best work, whether it's cinematography, whether it's production design, whether it's costumes, whether it's the choreography, whether it's just the performances by Ariana DeBose or Rachel Zegler, and then Spielberg like does some of the like probably his best work behind the camera for me, I would say, since Minority Report. I just thought it was a phenomenal film that in my eyes is better than the original, and I would say that like it's one of, I don't know if I'm willing to say top 10 because that's a bold statement for a man like Spielberg, but top 15 Spielberg movies of all time.
I think it's top 10 Spielberg. I mean,
I'm not willing to say it because I feel like I'm gonna sit here and go like through 10 movies and I'm not sure.
I feel like one day we should do that.
We should do that.
You can do it for Aronofsky. Kevin and I will do it for Spielberg.
That's true. For people who don't know that joke, that we did a show once where Sean said the best director of all time is Darren Aronofsky, randomly out of nowhere. It made no. I was like, what?
I don't even understand it. Yeah, I don't even really get it.
West Side Story is it's a stunning achievement.
Wait, it's your number 2, right?
It's my number 2, and I'm telling you right now, like, and I've watched the film 4 times now. I watched it with my mom. When I was home for Christmas as well, we went to see it, and every time I watch the film, and I said this to Spielberg in the interview, I somehow think it's going to change every time, and I'm like, maybe this time they won't fight, maybe this time this person will live and that person will live and we'll be fine. And like, for me to sit there knowing the ending already and to still think that because you're so in it. That's the power of Spielberg, right? And like, I remember interviewing him on the carpet for the Post once, and I asked him like about the science behind that. Yeah, you and I were there, Jake.
We're standing right next to each other.
I was like, is there a science in your mind about how you tell a story that we know the ending to already, but yet we lose ourselves in it and we forget the reality of the ending and we become immersed to a point where we think it's going to change? Like, when I watch West Side Story, like, my heart, I'm almost like, is it going to help? Can I help these people? I want to jump in the screen and help these characters. I want to shout out Mike Faist, who I don't think is getting enough attention, who plays Riff in the film. This kid literally carries the movie for the first, 30, 40 minutes. I mean, he's terrific. Unbelievable. I mean, Ariana DeBose, obviously, David Alvarez who plays Bernardo, and then obviously Rachel Zegler, and everybody's incredible. But when I was watching it for the 4th time, there's a scene with Rachel Zegler and Ariana DeBose after something tragic happens and they're in the apartment, and that whole song is done live. And Rachel Zegler is literally crying through the song, like trying to get the words out, because I was literally on the 4th viewing, that scene wrecked me, like destroyed. Like, the first 3, I'm like, this is incredible, but the 4th viewing, that moment, I mean, it is astounding what they achieved. And Kaminsky, I mean, don't even get me started. I mean, that shadow shot. I mean, you guys saw the interview where Spielberg explained why they did the shadows from overhead. And like, what I loved about that moment was, like, at the end of the day, it's a cool looking shot, but to hear him narratively tell you why he did it, that's the key. That's why that film is not a remake of the 61 film. It is a complete adaptation of Sondheim and Bernstein's music and lyrics.
In the same way that Dune is not a remake of Lynch's film, it's just another adaptation of Herbert's novel.
Yeah, exactly. I don't like West Side Story being called a remake. I really don't, because I don't think it is.
I stopped saying remake after I saw it. It's
not a remake. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyways.
All right. My number 2 is a musical as well, too, but it's a good one. Tick, Tick, Boom. Kidding. No, I gotta say, my only thing about West Side Story is that it is the textbook definition for me of while I was watching it, I admired all the pieces of it and never got swept up in the story.
Oh, you should watch it again, man. Give it one more. It's incredible, man. It really is.
Someday I will. But I went with Tick, Tick, Boom, which is, to me, Andrew Garfield gave the performance of the year. And I honestly don't even think it's close.
Nope.
I've told this before on the show but halfway through the opening song, 3090, when he's belting it out, and I realized that, like, oh, he's singing this and he's actually performing this, and I turned to Michelle and I was like, man, fuck this guy. He's so talented.
Dude, he learned to sing for the role. He didn't know how to sing.
And sing as Jonathan Larson. Like, he is, if you watch those side-by-side comparisons. But in addition to that, like, I think Tick, Tick, Boom works so well because it probably in a way that Spielberg was such a student of and passionate fan of West Side Story. Lin-Manuel Miranda, lived and breathed Tick, Tick, Boom. He credits Jonathan Larson with being a huge influence for why he even got into Broadway in the first place. He played Jonathan Larson in a version of Tick, Tick, Boom off Broadway. So this is a director who's stepping into a project who knows how to elevate the material. And I think it did a tremendous job of, it has this great visual style where it's going back and forth between Jonathan on a stage with a few singers and then going into recreations of things that are going on. And it does it flawlessly. I think it moves incredibly fast. I think that there are multiple huge emotional beats that play out perfectly for it. I think it's a great, great story about people in their 20s who are right on that cusp of, and I think all of us have gone through this. The three of us especially have gone through this in this industry of, like, can I actually make this work? Or am I going to have to go back to be, the way that he phrases it in the movie is, am I a waiter who, sometimes writes songs, or am I a songwriter who's just, waiting for my big break to hit? And the way that it doesn't pull its punches, because I didn't know how the story was going to go. And he gets his big showcase and then it doesn't work, and his agent is kind of just like, start writing the next one. And I was like, God, that's exactly what it is. You don't get it on the first try. No one it's so rare that people get it on the first try, and you just keep grinding away at it. So I really connected with that message. I think the music's fantastic. I've listened to the soundtrack so many different times. I think Lin-Manuel Miranda is going to be a really exciting director to watch. And of all the musicals that hit last year, I thought that was the one that resonated the best. So let's get to our number ones. Oh, Kev, where were you? I'm sorry, Kev, you had.
So that's my number 4. Tick, Tick, Boom's my number 4.
Nice.
Here's what I'll say, and I'll keep it brief. In terms of the power of cinema, when a movie gives me the ability to discover something that I didn't know that is now a beautiful, impactful thing in my life, like, you can't deny the power of that. Like, I knew who Jonathan Larson was. I knew what Rent was, obviously, but I didn't know any of these songs, the songs that are in this film. And now they're some of my favorite songs that I've sing them all the time. And I've watched this movie 4 or 5 times. It is the best performance of the year. It's not even close. It's not even close. It's the best performance of the year.
He might not win.
Well, I mean, it doesn't. The Oscars never pick the right thing anyways, generally speaking. But in terms of, like, you're right, the pacing is great, the music is great, the live singing. I mean, it is just a powerhouse of a film. And also, I want to shout out Alice. I don't want to blank on her last name. She's the cinematographer who shot this and In the Heights. Okay. Her name is Alice. In case I can get the last name for us. Incredible DP. And there's a shot in this movie where Andrew's in the pool. And he's swimming, and it's this masterful shot where they put musical notes in the water, and it's this huge arc for the character. Incredible, absolutely stunning. And it is just In the Heights was incredibly shot too. I mean, remember the scene where they were dancing on the side of the building? It was unbelievable. But you have the last name.
Alice Brooks is the
Alice
director.
Brooks. Thank you.
Okay,
great DP. Shout out to Alice Brooks. But last thing I'll say is this, Sean, is like, Tick, Tick, Boom, like, it just holds a special place in my heart because Garfield became him.
Yeah.
Garfield was gone. Like, that kid was not on camera. Yeah. That was Jonathan Larson. And if you, like, Sean brought up the side-by-sides, find the side-by-sides. That will tell you why that performance deserves the Oscar. It's exact.
Jake,
precise.
Your number 1 film of 2021 is?
Tick Tick Dune.
Kevin, your number one film of 2021 is
Dune.
So you guys can dive into Denis' masterpiece.
Wait, where is it on your list?
6. It made it 6.
That's right.
Yeah, because it's a tremendous half of a movie.
Oh.
Look, it's the world that Denis created is immersive to the point of, and this is going to sound
scary.
like an over exaggeration, but like kind of to the point where I forgot I was in a movie theater and just kind of felt like I was watching a documentary on this world. It was absolutely incredible. Everything that I said about West Side Story, I feel like is applicable to Dune, and that Denis clearly has been wanting to make this for a while, has been thinking about it for a while. The thing I think I love most about Dune, though, is that it's tangible. Everything that I feel like I could touch everything. I feel like I had an understanding of the scope and the size of everything. This wasn't people standing in front of a bunch of CGI screens and me having to use my own imagination. This was almost like this was a fully realized, built, tangible. I understood how everything felt. I understand how big everything was. This was an incredible world that I was thrown into and loved every single second of it.
It's one of the best ensembles of the year, too.
Yes.
I mean, everyone's
No
perfectly
question.
cast. I'm sorry, Kev, go ahead.
No, because you haven't spoken on it yet either. I mean,
I'm going to save it for
saying.
my number one. I'm going to wait for my number one to gush.
Okay. No question. The most incredible cinematic experience I had in the movies this year was seeing Dune in IMAX. I got to see it on True 143. It's breathtaking, and I sat next to Lauren and her father, who gets up to go to the bathroom every time we go see a movie. The guy didn't leave his seat. It
Put
just
that on the poster.
It's a very dry movie.
Yeah.
Very dry movie.
yeah, that's a good point, actually. But they were like, that movie drags you into the story, into the world, and does not let go. Yep. And Greg Fraser, who's obviously, we're going to see some brilliant work of his coming up in the Batman, just beautifully shot. These desert sequences, there's the CGI. Like Chris Nolan said this, actually, that it was the best he'd ever seen of a blended practical and CGI environments. I mean, he's not wrong. I mean, they shot so much of this on location,
which is funny, which Denis attributes to his work with Deakins. He attributes his work with Deakins with how much he learned about light and how he was able to mix that.
Unreal.
Such a crazy mix of names there that sort of helped make Dune real.
And we had Denis on the show, obviously, for Dune. It was an incredibly insightful interview. And for me, personally, on a selfish level, to hear him geek out about 143 IMAX and then finally see it that way, I got to tell you guys something off show that really makes me angry, but I'll leave it there at that. But in terms of this film, I hope they re-release it in IMAX at some point after the pandemic, because this is a film that you need to see. Hopefully, when we get Dune Part 2, they'll do a back-to-back.
Oh, that'd be cool.
I'm assuming, and then we can watch it as Dune totally. But I still don't mind if they chapter it, Part 1, Part 2, because it is 2 separate shot films. But yeah, no question. Also, Hans Zimmer's score is the best score of the year, and Zimmer was on our show.
Zimmer was also on our show.
Zimmer was on our show from the room where he showed Christopher Nolan the Interstellar score for the first time.
Presumably where he's made everything that we love.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. So yeah, listen to Zimmer, listen to Denis Villeneuve if you haven't heard those. But yeah, I mean, Dune is to say it's a stunning and astounding achievement is so. It's almost like that's not enough. I don't think there's words to describe the level of immersion this movie gives you. It's just incredible.
All right, my number one, to the surprise of nobody, is Spider-Man: No Way Home.
It makes me so happy that you love that movie.
A movie
number
that,
6.
That.
That's funny. Our 1 and 6 are kind of interchangeable.
Yes, they are. Look at that. That's kind of bizarre. Much like Jake talks about Finch being a movie made directly for him, Spider-Man: No Way Home is a movie made directly for me. It is going to replace Infinity War on the wall back here. In a point where, like, when I watch Endgame and I thought, like, how is this happening? Like, that's not possible. You can't do this. That's how I felt through all of No Way Home. Like, it is the quintessential Spider-Man movie. It's everything that's great about Spider-Man distilled into one film. And I still haven't really processed. Brendan and I are going back tonight to go watch it one more time.
Nice.
Because the first time through, I was just dumbfounded. And the second time through, a lot of the emotions started to connect. And now I feel like this third time through, I'm going to be able to really just appreciate everything that's happening in it.
You can almost relax and just kind of like, because you're not worried about what's going to happen. You can just kind of go, all right, and just get a big bag of popcorn.
Sean's going to go see it and go, oh my God, I don't like it anymore.
Those are not good.
Those are the best viewing experiences ever. If you walk into a film on a movie you love and you can just chill. That's what happened to me on Hollywood on my third viewing. I was just like, you know what? I'm just going to grab some Milk Duds and a popcorn and take the 70mm experience, and it blew. It's not my favorite movie of his career.
But to throw out a couple of things that work so well about it, it's a great balance of a Tom Holland movie, which it should be, an MCU movie, but also a terrific movie that pays homage to the existing franchises. But it doesn't just do it in a lazy way. It's not fan service. It's not curtain calls for everybody. It works in the villains. Defoe gives an Oscar-worthy performance. I know that we're saying that a lot.
He does.
Alfred Molina is terrific as Dr. Octopus. And of course, the surprise of bringing the other two Spider-Men back and bringing them back for a narrative reason is the reason why
not
this
a cameo.
Is the number one movie of the year for me.
And
So
Sean gives a really great emotional review of the movie in our spoiler episode for Spider-Man No Way Home. We dive into everything, and you can get obviously Sean that was Sean's review episode because he wasn't able to join us for or see it prior. So I mean, I want people to listen to that because that's really like the true fan and you talked about the film and what it meant to you personally, and so I definitely check that episode out.
it means everything.
Do we want to hear our top fives? The ReelBlend top five?
Let's hear
Barb and
it.
Star 1 through 5.
And a reminder, all these movies we've discussed throughout the year, so search ReelBlend,
And
search
it's
for
a
the
point
movie.
system, right?
It's a point system. But I wanted to let everyone at home know we've done full reviews of, I think, everything on these lists. So if you want to hear more thoughts, go check out those episodes. Quick Google search should get you there. So ReelBlend's top 5, according to this fantastic point system. Number 5, coming from Kevin and Sean's list, we have Tick Tick Boom with 16 points.
Okay.
Number 4, this is a very interesting. Number 4, from Kevin and Jake's list, we have West Side Story with 18 points.
Oh, interesting. All
I'm
right.
happy
Okay.
that made it. Okay.
Okay. Musicals.
And we have I believe our first tie for second place
Oh. Okay.
with 19 points each. We have Belfast and Spider-Man No Way Home.
Oh, and then Dune is number 1?
Number 1 movie of 2021, according to ReelBlend, is Dune, baby.
Hey, that's a terrific list.
29 points. 29
That's
points, which is the same number of points as our number 1 last year.
Which was Tenet?
Which was... Oh, no, was it Tenet? Let me look and see. I got it
Had
right
to be
here.
Tenet.
Well, while you're doing that, because I know we're running out of time, we're no blend game for this week.
Well, here, hang on. Let me... Last thing before you do that.
Oh, sorry.
We had 19. You guys had 19 different movies across all 30 picks, so fairly various. You know, it wasn't like you guys only picked 12.
Finch, honorable mention.
Bench and honorable mention.
It was
Anyway,
a good list.
it's a great year. The top 5 is pretty amazing. But Jake, I think we have plugs for everyone at the end of the show, but I think Jake is gonna bounce.
He's got to go. Yeah.
So we'll see Jake later.
He's going to see Finch again.
We'll leave you guys with some awesome plugs here at the end.
What other stats? Any other stats that you can share or no?
That's pretty much about it. I thought it was interesting, the breakdown of whose lists had the 4 and 5. We'll see. We almost had a disappointment for Jake. I think, what was it, number 7? Barb and Star tied for 7th. Almost cracked the top 5.
That would have been so good.
Coda was number
Little
was number
higher?
6 though. Coda was number 6.
Okay. I can see
Free Guy. Barb and Star tied with Free Guy.
Okay.
Because Kev had it so high on his list. Yeah.
So, no blend game this week because we dedicated everything to our top 10s. But next week, we're going to have a lot of fun playing hashtag Wes Craven Blend. So make sure you play along with the Horror Meister, the late Horror Meister, who we're going to be paying tribute to because Scream is opening. Email us at realblend@cinemablend.com with your picks or use hashtag Wes Craven Blend. A reminder, please drop us a review and a rating over on Spotify. You can give us a rating on Spotify. And thank you for all the love and support. Our next premium episode. I don't know if I plugged the premium episodes at the beginning of this episode, but I had a lot of fun over the break going back and re-listening to a bunch of the premiums because I guess I just don't. I forget to listen to it on Mondays. They're a lot of fun. That's kind of where we, not that we're very structured here in the first place, but that's kind of where we let our hair down, play some really fun games, and get into some really personal stories. We tell a lot of junket stories and get into some fun things on the premium. So if you would like to figure out how to get those bonus episodes on Mondays, as well as an ad-free version of the show and a newsletter from me, head to
the description.
Check the description where you are listening. Thank you very much to sign up for our premium feed. So in the meantime, you can find us on social media at Jake's Takes, at Kevin McCarthy TV, at Sean_O'Connell, at Gabe Kovach, and at ReelBlend. We'll be back next week. I have no clue what we're shouting in 2022. It can't be Hubie. Gotta be something new. We'll have it by next week. Adios.
Hubie.
One last time. All right, one last time. All right, bye all.